July 28, 1944. Dutch New Guinea. A formation of P-38 Lightnings encountered two Japanese Sonia bombers over El Paputi Bay. Standard engagement. 4 American fighters versus 2 Japanese bombers. Should have been over in minutes. But one of the Sonia pilots, Captain Saburo Shimada, wasn't ready to die. He threw his bomber into turns so tight the P-38s couldn't get a clean shot. He dodged, he weaved, he made 4 American aces look like students. Then a 5th P-38 rolled in. The pilot lined up, held the shot through a head-on pass that closed at 500 miles per hour and squeezed the trigger for exactly 6 seconds. The Sonia's engine exploded, the propeller stopped, the plane dove into the ocean and never came back up. The American pilots watched in silence. They knew that shot. They'd seen it before, but they couldn't report it because the pilot who made that kill wasn't supposed to be there, wasn't supposed to be flying, technically wasn't even in the military. His name was Charles Lindbergh, yes, that Charles Lindbergh, the man who flew across the Atlantic alone in 1927, the most famous pilot in the world, the man whose baby was kidnapped and murdered in 1932. The man who'd publicly opposed America entering the war. The man who'd said things about Germany that made people call him a Nazi sympathizer. That Charles Lindbergh. And in 1944, he was in the Pacific flying combat missions under the cover of being a civilian technical representative. The truth was more complicated. Lindbergh was there because the P-38 Lightning had a problem. Great plane, fast, heavily armed, but it couldn't fly far enough. The Pacific was too big. Islands were too spread out. Fighters would run out of fuel before they could escort bombers to the target and back. Standard procedure was to cruise at 200 RPM, manifold pressure low, mixture on auto rich, because that's what the manual said. And the manual said that because running over square, high manifold pressure, low RPM, would destroy engines. Everyone knew that. Everyone except Charles Lindbergh. In 1927, he'd flown 3,600 miles on a single engine by running it leaner, slower, smarter than anyone thought possible. He understood something the combat pilots didn't. The manual was an average, not a law. Somewhere between the safe zone and the danger zone was a sweet spot where engines ran cooler, used less fuel and lasted longer. He just had to prove it. So Lindbergh flew missions. Close missions at first, short hops where if his engine quit he could glide back, then longer missions, then combat missions. He showed pilots how to adjust mixture, reduce RPM, increase manifold pressure, and suddenly P-38s that had 570 miles of range were flying 750. That's 31% more range. That's the difference between escorting bombers all the way to the target or turning back halfway and leaving them unprotected. But Lindbergh didn't stop at teaching. He flew combat, 50 missions. He strafed enemy positions. He bombed airfields. And on July 28, 1944, he shot down a Japanese fighter in combat, making him possibly the only civilian in World War II to score an aerial victory. The kill was never officially recorded. If Washington found out a civilian was flying combat missions, there would be hell to pay. So the other pilots agreed. It never happened. Charles Lindbergh was never there, but they knew. And years later, they'd tell the story. About the most famous pilot in the world who came to the Pacific, changed how fighters flew, and shot down an enemy plane, all while technically being a civilian. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories like this, the untold ones, the ones that should be famous but aren't. Comment and tell me, did you know Lindbergh flew combat in World War II? Most people don't, but now you do. See you next time.